So in your new album, Sands of Time, for this year, 2021,
Right.
with 11 fantastic tracks. Who did the album cover for you guys on that album?
Our singer Brian Lee, he designed that, and he's got a special gift for things like that. He's got an eye and a knack for it, and I think he could do another career in marketing if he had to. He's just got that knack for it. We're, as a unit, our band, we really are fortunate to have like somebody like Brian in the pocket to handle a lot of those things, because he's very good at it. And I'm glad to hear that you like that cover.
He conceptualized it. He didn't actually do the art. He commissioned a gal, I think in France,
Did he really?
to do it. Yeah.
See, I didn't even know that.
But he had you learn something new. Right. But he knew what he wanted, and he found her online. And she's got a credit on the album. Her name escapes me right now, but she kind of brought to life what he had envisioned. And, it kind of ties together some of the themes of the record. The album, it's not quite a concept record, but it has a strong theme, and it is very much tied to our band story, which is, everything we've told you up to right now about the band story is kind of typical, I would think. You probably hear a lot of very similar, dudes grow up together, get in a band, play some bars, write some songs. It's cool. It kind of peters out. Everyone gets a job and a mortgage, and
And kids and family and
right.
Yeah.
We do that too, but
Yeah, but your story's a little unique in the fact that your hiatus, the amount of time that between, the time off is much greater than most. And from what you said before, I mean, a lot of this material was written. You've been sitting on it for a long time, so it's not like you just sat down together, 20 or 30 years later and then rewrote, just wrote a whole brand new album.
Right. That's where the story. That's where the plot thickens, and
Right.
And I think it makes this album special. It's so to summarize it so that we could kind of speak to the album itself. When Barron's Here to Rock and the Redd Barron demo were re-released with Jeremy at Heaven and Hell Records back in 2018, it kind of catalyzed us. We've remained friends. We ended friendly, we all sort of went our separate ways, but we would periodically talk and great terms and great chemistry. And Pete and I and Frank were in a couple different bands post Redd Barron, so there was musical connections too. But when Heaven and Hell re-released our stuff, we got together and started talking about maybe playing a few shows to support the release, which turned out wonderful.
Right.
Right.
But when that happened, we realized, we don't look the same, but we sound the same. It was just magic. We still had it, So, in our live shows, there were a bunch of tunes that we had written and played, but never got recorded. And so, even at those, we did 3 shows in 2018, and we played, half the set was these other songs. And so the idea formed in our head, what would happen if we recorded these? So literally all 11 songs were 30 years old. None of them are new.
Oh, wow.
They were all songs we played back in the day. And we've just brought them back to life.
And that's what's so crazy about it. It's like when we sit down and we listen to it, we're going, this is amazing. This is new, to us, because we're not hearing it as these are 30-year-old songs. I mean, granted, we have, the re-release. We had the re-release 2 years ago, when we spoke with Jeremy, and we were like, oh, okay, sure, great, this is awesome. But it's still, to us, when it was presented to us, we were like, this is new. It doesn't feel like it's 30 years old. It feels like it fits and it's relevant now.
I agree.
When I asked you guys if you guys were going to pick out the 4 songs you were going to play to your audience, I basically, when I asked you that, you didn't really know, and I responded, well, it's kind of good that you picked them out, but I never asked Greg if he preferred any of the 4 songs that you really wanted to put out there. I never knew, but,
all the ones where my guitar is the loudest.
That's a typical response from a guitarist.
Yeah. Well, the 4 man just went from 4 to 11.
Yours goes to 11.
Yeah, I mixed it, so of course my guitar is louder.
Well, okay, so you actually mixed it yourself.
Yeah, so that was sort of the other part of the equation, because one of the things that is part of my post-Redd Barron story is that I have a recording studio. It's humble. It's the building out back of the house kind of studio.
Yeah.
But I've recorded tons and tons of music over the years, and got a pretty decent little setup, and so it kind of was a no-brainer that we could record because I have a studio. So that really eased us into the discussion of seeing if we could record these 11 tunes and bring them to life. So they were recorded at Grevin Studios, which my wife's name is Vanessa, so Grevin.
I love it. Grevin Studios. That's a shameless plug for anybody in the Chicagoland area who needs somebody to record an album, is Grevin Studios.
Yeah, and it's also a reminder to any guy who wants to turn his garage into a studio, just name half of it after your wife.
Oh, first we'd have to get a garage, Toby.
I know it.
But and my wife is a phenomenal singer-songwriter too, and so she gets as much out of it as I do. But so we started whipping up the tracks and putting them together, and COVID kind of threw a wrench in it a little bit from a time standpoint, but it turned out great. And the goal was, we kind of had set the standard that we wanted to hit, which was to make it something that sounded timeless. Like, we didn't want it to sound like a cassette from 1989, but we didn't want it to sound like manufactured 2021 came out of a computer either. Like,
Right.
We did a whole lot of rehearsal to make it sound like us. Like, that's, if you see us live, that's what we sound like.
Right. Well, and I think the fans are saying that a lot too. We're finding that a lot with people when we're playing music, and other musicians are coming in and listening to stuff, and they're going, I love this sound because it doesn't sound auto-tuned, and it doesn't sound over produced and everything. And people are liking that sound now. They don't want all of that really well. They want it to sound good, but they don't want it to sound like it's just been completely all pieced together on a machine.
Yeah, and it was cool because Jeremy at Heaven and Hell, that was the one thing he said. Because I'm like, do you release new stuff? Well, I mean, it's old stuff, but it's new stuff. It's not a re-release, Do you guys do that at Heaven and Hell? And he goes, yeah. He said, but he goes, just do me one favor. Don't make it sound like 2021. Like, make it sound like what we all like,
Right.
But, so, I didn't record to a cassette, but I tried to not abuse it, I mean, we're at the end of the day, we're a live band, that's what we always were. And, there's no kind of studio trickery that we can't reproduce live. I mean, that's what we sound like. So that was our goal.
So speaking of that, we'll start with Rod. Out of the 11 songs that you recorded on this album, what's your favorite one to play?
That's a very good question because I have two favorite songs, and like you asked, my favorite song to play is our second track, which is The Edge. That's my favorite song to play. And then my favorite song on the CD is actually Caution to the Wind.
Which is the second to the last track.
Correct.
Okay. And then what about you, Greg? You have a favorite song that you like to play because it's the loudest guitar, or just in general?
Yeah. Well, you know what? One thing, Rod says that Brian, our singer, is a wordsmith, but he can turn a phrase too. And back in the day, I even think we used to put them on our flyers we put out. Oh, yeah. One of the things Rod would always say is, all killer, no filler. That was one of our mantras. Like, we were just like, if a song's weak, just don't record it. Like,
right.
Don't that, whatever. And we actually, there's more songs, but we kind of picked we felt were cream of the crop. And I told the band too, I'm like, even as I was mixing them and sending the mixes out to the guys, I'm like, if one doesn't stand up, we'll save it for like release it later or something, or make it let's stick with all killer, no filler, So, I don't think there's a weak track on the album. There's nothing that I feel like I want to fast forward to get past or skip. But just like near and dear to my heart, I think, to me, that they fall into two camps. Like, I think a song like King of the Hill, The Edge, those are like quintessential Red Barron. Like, they got all the elements that kind of make a Red Barron track kind of high energy, kind of, gangy vocals, we noticed, like, our first gig back, we played at the Legions of Metal Festival in Chicago. That was our first time together in 20-something years.
Right.
At Reggie's, and it was amazing. But what we noticed was, by the time we would get to the second chorus, people would be singing along with us.
Okay.
Some people might say, oh, your stuff's too simple, like it's too predictable. But to me, it's like, man, like people can catch it and participate right away.
Right.
So if you listen to a song like King of the Hill or The Edge, you hear that kind of anthemic, you can connect with the band and participate right away. And I think that dates back to when we were one of the few bands not playing covers, like Rod said. And your songs had to be catchy, man, because no one had ever heard them before.
Right, and that's what makes it fun, though, is if your people are participating and into it, then they're enjoying it.
Right. So like I would say, a bunch of the songs in the album are kind of that. This is what we expect from Red Barron, and I would say King of the Hill and The Edge are kind of like highly representative of that. But then there's two songs that are the ones that they're different from the others, and they're personal favorites of mine because they really stand out. And one of them is the title track, Sands of Time. It's more kind of slower tempo, still real heavy, but it's kind of got almost like a Middle Eastern vibe to it. It's definitely different from the other tracks, and it stands out. I love that song. And then the other one is Shadow Man. Shadow Man is the third track, and it's kind of
a little darker.
Yeah, it's darker. It's also a little slower paced. But those songs, they have a different kind of power that make them kind of near and dear to my heart. So, long-winded answer, but
there's no right or wrong answer. I asked it. You answer it how you want to.
Yeah.
Now, you have a video out based on Sands of Time. Would you like to